So I have so many good memories of just sitting in the silence, listening to this while I was taking classes and realizing I was going through a transformation process and wondering where it would all lead. We're still on that journey. So I just invite you we can continue to play that, Levitt, that's great. I invite you to take in and out a slow, deep breath. And to feel the presence of the Christ within. Let's just in a few moments of silence take some deep breaths and attune to this presence. We know that we are born for greatness. We are born for displaying and outpicturing the presence of God. We are here to do something unique and beautiful as each and every one of us. And maybe sometimes we have the tendency to downplay that, but thousands of years have gone into our making. We are not here by accident. We are here by the propulsion, the power, the presence of God. We align with this presence, this power, right now. Opening our hearts and opening our minds. And for all of this we give thanks, and so it is. Amen. Thank you for coming. Yeah, you are troopers. You made it. You made it. Yeah, to the last class. Oh, wow. Last class of this session, right? And I believe I'm going to be meeting with Reverend Levitt and Catherine Burton Thursday? Tomorrow? I don't know if Reverend Levitt is able to meet or not. That's no worries, no worries. If don't want to stretch you or anything, but look at some other possible classes for the future. And they're excellent teachers. We've been, yes. Oh, let's get you on the microphone.
I'm wondering if we could ask them if they have any classes that they would like to take, just as a little input.
Yeah. Have you all, some of you have probably taken a number of classes. Are there certain ones that you're really wanting or needing that you know of? Some of you may not be familiar with the SEE classes. So, you know, there's Healing and Wholeness with Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. There is some of my favorites are to teach heart-centered metaphysics, and there's really quite a number of topics that are covered in that. I really love teaching myself meditation and prayer practices. That's probably one of my favorite things to teach. So at some point, I'm sure I'll teach that. So anyway, stay tuned. And I hope you all have had the opportunity to read in Eric Butterworth's Spiritual Economics and also in Charles Fillmore's Prosperity. Last week we were talking about giving, and it's not just a little bit of what Charles Fillmore talks about. He really talks about giving as being the way that opens up the universe for us. Let me just bring up a few things here. He says this. Sure, this is on page 154 in Charles Fillmore's Prosperity. Surely there is a more excellent way, one more in harmony with divine law, a way that permits the heart as well as the head and hand to be used in the grace of giving and receiving. Those who are using the free will offering method meet with some criticism and opposition from those who hold to the commercial method, that is, of charging a set amount, and say that charging a definite sum is the legitimate way. They accuse unity of fostering charity and poverty. Our reply is that we are pursuing the only course that could ever effectually eradicate these erroneous states of consciousness and bring people into an understanding of the spiritual law of prosperity through giving in love. So he's saying, and I found this to be a very interesting concept, he's saying that giving shifts our consciousness. Giving shifts our consciousness from this idea of lack into the idea of abundance and receiving. Last week we had a little bit of discussion about giving and receiving and all of that. But Fillmore's point is that giving is the way to really open our consciousness to receiving. Giving is what helps us to eliminate that consciousness of lack and scarcity. He talks about it quite a bit in this, that consciousness of lack and scarcity, and it can be pretty predominant in our world, to hear about scarcity, there's not enough. But Fillmore and Butterworth over and over say that this infinite substance, this God substance, never runs out. And so any one of us can appropriate it. Any one of us can use it. On page 158, Charles Fillmore says, God loveth a cheerful giver. That's a quote from Scripture. The Greek word here, translated cheerful, is hilarion, which is where we get the word hilarious, joyful. So we're encouraged when we're giving to not only be a cheerful giver, but to be a hilarious giver. Because we're circulating this divine good, this divine essence. Hi, Keith. And Butterworth, and if you haven't had the opportunity to read all of these, I really encourage you to read these. Butterworth on page 194 in this edition says, wherever substance is at all, the whole of substance must be. Okay? So he's saying substance can't be divided. It can't be diminished. So wherever substance is, then all of it must be present. And because substance is omnipresent, the whole of universal substance must be present at every point in space at the same time. So all of this substance is always fully and completely present. And that is a foundational teaching in Unity and in these prosperity books, is that this universal substance is always and completely present. And it's not that some people are have it and some people don't. It's completely available everywhere, regardless of your language or your upbringing or whatever. It's totally available to all of us. And that is a foundational message. So if you get any one thing out of this class, that's it. that there's plenty. There's infinite substance for everybody. And it's up to us how we appropriate it, how we use it. And so, rather than praying, you could, but rather than praying for money to show up, maybe what our prayer is to be open to receiving and seeing the ways that all of that is available to us. Because it's already here. It's just a matter of being open to it and receiving it. Yes, Catherine.
This brings up a big question I've had for a while now, so I'm going to ask it. And that is,
we'll see what I do with it.
Well, I'll understand.
I can't wait.
Actually, there are two parts to it, because when I loved what you said about giving, because it allows our head, heart, and hands to be in kind of right relationship with God, because it's going this way. And then I see that life substance going, you're in the right, thing, so I'm going to give it to you. When I hear appropriate, I almost hear like, are we taking from the substance? I know I could be really wrong, but it's sort of different than giving. My question is, and I was pondering this today, sometimes we make affirmations about money, but my understanding from the Bible is God said, if you're in right relationship, if you're following my commandments, which are really the law of love, then prosperity, anything you need will come. So I'm wondering since you're my minister,
Yay!
Yeah, and that's a big, I'm very happy about that.
Thanks, me too.
Yeah, very happy. Is like, should we be making affirmations for money, or should we be looking at living in right relationship with God and knowing, and sometimes having to affirm, I know, as the Fillmores did, we dedicate our lives to the Christ, knowing that everything we need will come.
Yes, right. Because Matthew chapter 6 says, seek first the kingdom of God and God's righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. That's the principle you're talking about. And Charles Fillmore would very much back up that principle. And in their dedication, their covenant that Myrtle and Charles Fillmore filled out at the beginning days of this movement, they dedicated themselves totally to God, to the Spirit of the Christ, and to be available to do this work of prayer with people and assist people in their spiritual awakening, knowing that everything would be supplied to them in terms of finances, health, everything that they needed, without any of those things being the object of their dedication. And so that's the principle you're talking about. And when I use the word appropriate, maybe another way to say that would be to allow, to receive. I think sometimes it's about consciousness. And one of the things in reading these books again is that so much of this is about consciousness. Again, that's a foundational principle of metaphysical teaching is that it's about our consciousness. And so, there are people who do a lot to put God first, and yet sometimes wonder why they're experiencing lack in their lives. And, sometimes it can be some of their belief systems, like maybe they think money is bad, or maybe they think that money should come in a particular way. And so my point was to be open to all the ways in which God wants to bless us. It may not be in the exact channel that we thought, but we can be open and watching to what it is we need to do or be open to experience that. Putting God first, it's all available, but if I'm not willing to receive it, that's what I mean by appropriate. Maybe receive or allow is what I mean. Yeah, to allow that. Let's see, Keith has his hand up.
Well, I always ask God first. And there's various ways for me, and I don't know what I mentioned to you last week, but I decided to make a spiritual bucket list to show how serious I am about things that I want. And with that in mind, having my list and keeping it in front of me, I started writing letters to God. Did I tell you that last week? So then the next step was I decided to make a vision board. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's coming from, we'll say, my imagination from the invisible to the visible. So it shows how serious I am in terms of what I want so that I can see it. Mm-hmm. And I have my, it's on a big piece of paper, and I have myself in the middle, and I have the things that I would like to have. But not so much what's have, but also to experience. Having a sense of family, having a sense of home, right. Having a sense of friends, because those things to me are what nurture my spirit and my soul.
Right.
So, but, that to me as a step is that I have to, I have to do something. I have to do the work, if that is work, it's play, to using my creative skills, mm-hmm. To ask God by, either talking to God or writing my letters or making my vision board so that God knows, this is, he's serious, this is what you really want. Mm-hmm. And being focused on that. But I'm okay if I don't really get it all. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be disappointed or mad at God if I don't, because it's fine, I'll get it in some way. And I don't have to do the work.
Right.
I'll let God go and get, bring those things for me. And that's what I like, is that I put it out there, talk to God, already give thanks, got my vision board, I'm working on it. And then, the results is not up to me. I think God does a better job for me. And I don't have to try so hard. Mm-hmm. I don't like having to try hard. So to me is getting to that vision board. And I'm having fun with it. And they become art pieces. That's what I like. They become collages and things that I like, and that's my own kind of art and my own creative expression, and I'm going to be doing that, and it's just awesome. It's really nice allowing that to come forward. Good. And it's showing the creative ability, allowing God to express through me and mm-hmm. what it is that I desire.
Good. Thank you, Keith. And something that you said triggered in me, sometimes what people want, but what they think they want might be a little different. So, like, someone, let's say, may want money, and, okay, what is it that you want money for? Well, so that I can have home, and so that I can be able to afford some things that will be pleasing and useful in my life. So maybe part of what they're really wanting is a sense of relationship with someone, maybe to build home, maybe to, sometimes we focus on the means so much that we forget what the underlying need really is. Yeah. And so, yeah, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Jan. Yes.
One of the things I really liked, I don't remember where in the books it was, but the idea that there is infinite supply means that you don't have to feel like your having means someone else doesn't have. Because that was always a hard thing for me to see people who had, big houses and people. I think artwork was one of my big things. It's like people spend so many thousands of dollars on a piece of art when there's people starving. And that just seemed wrong. Of course, now my daughter's an artist, and I see that how much work goes into making a piece of art, and that it probably is worth the amount of money that people are paying for it. So that's just changed my way of thinking about that it's not taking away from anybody when you have something, because they can have too. There's no limit to the supply.
That's right.
We're so used to the idea that there's only so much money, and if these guys have this much, then those guys don't. And it's not really like that.
Right. Thank you. And what I found is that it's difficult for me to share something with somebody that I don't have. Profound, huh? It's difficult for me to share something with someone that I don't have. So I used to have some mental blocks, like it wasn't spiritual to have a new car. I used to have these mental blocks. And I remember, a couple of years ago when we bought a new car, and how much better it felt at that time. Like, yeah, this is good. I love this car. And hopefully I'll be able to help other people with this car. And so, friends arrived from Canada, and it's like they were talking about renting a car. It's like, use this one. And so they've been using our car, And it's like the ways in which we're blessed are not just for us. And it's something in which we can bless the whole world around us. I think that was part of, as I look back, it was difficult for me to accept receiving good, and it was difficult for me to share good. And I realized, that goes together. If I'm open to receiving, I'm also open to sharing, to giving, to recirculating. Let me read this one other quote. This is page 202 in the Spiritual Economics. And this phrase is repeated several times in Butterworth's book. It's kind of towards the top of the page on 202. But he refers to inlet, which may become an outlet for all there is in God. So we are an inlet of all there is in God. I got to go to Hanauma Bay yesterday. It's so gorgeous. It was my first time there. Yeah, I've been here 11 months. What? My first time. Went snorkeling all day yesterday. It was amazing. And, you know, feeling this connection with the fish and stuff and just feeling so grateful. And, you know, learning the history of this volcanic crater and how it got filled with this water and all this amazing ecosystem started. And so I was thinking it's an inlet for all there is of the ocean. It's an inlet for that. So that the substance, imagine the substance being the ocean, that's still putting a limitation on it, but imagine substance being the ocean. And then this crater creates an inlet for all that there is, all the abundance, all the beauty. And it didn't have to feel bad about receiving all that beauty. And it shares it with lots of people. And to me, it was a good image of prosperity, of being open to the ways that God is working. And as I am blessed, then I can in turn bless others, you know? So it doesn't have to be like a bad thing to receive, because how can I share what I don't have? Think about that. Keith?
Yeah, sometimes I get in the way.
Yeah.
And realizing it's already there, I just don't recognize it.
Exactly.
And I was watching this program about these people who have a vision of a home like on the Thames, and they want to build a house that'll float when the river overflows. People said it was impossible, and they did it. And other people, they had a vision to do the impossible. And everybody said they couldn't do it, and it was ridiculous. And they kept their vision, and I think that's really important to keep that vision, that it is possible. And I have to remember that, I have to get myself out of the way. And I think, I just can't go to this place, because of, money. And I have money, Mm-hmm. And I get in the way sometimes of limiting myself to do certain things when it's already there.
Yes.
I just sometimes don't allow that to happen.
Right.
And I have to remember, that it is already there. And it may not be in the form that I would like.
Right.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I like surprises anyway, so I let God surprise me. Give me a better, a better house, or whatever it is, I let God go and create, a better vision, but at least I give him an outline.
Right. So, it's about consciousness.
Yeah. But these people had a vision, and they wanted to do the impossible. And that's what I like, that they proved it. And everybody said they couldn't do it, and they did it. And I thought that was really nice. And it inspires me to see that people do the impossible. That is, they have a vision of their dreams in their house.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's about our consciousness. We're the ones who put a limit on what we can experience, what we can receive. We're the ones, I mean, we sometimes want to blame other outside forces. And again, I'm kind of summarizing some of the foundational principles in all these books, because I really want to make sure we get these foundational principles. So a foundational principle is that it's up to us. It's up to our consciousness. It's up to us. How big of an inlet do we want to make? And Catherine brought up something very good. A couple weeks ago, about it was hard for you to imagine a whole bunch, so you would do it in increments. And Ernest Holmes calls that, arriving at a new mental equivalent. And if I see someone else doing what was impossible, then it tells me, oh, it creates a new mental equivalent. Like, maybe I can do that then. And so, here's another foundational belief in metaphysics. Jesus, part of the mission of Jesus was to establish a new mental equivalent for the consciousness of humanity. Jesus was here to establish a new mental equivalent for all of humanity so that we can see, oh, look at what's possible. Because Jesus did it, and Jesus said we could do it. But then the tendency became, oh, only Jesus could do it. You know? I've noticed, sometimes, like a friend of mine just wrote me and really surprised me. He said, maybe it'd be better if I visit you in Hawaii than having you come to New York to see me. I'm thinking, New York? I didn't know he had moved to New York. He and I had talked about it when we were living in Wichita. He's a minister, and he used to be a monk, and he had talked about maybe going back to this temple in New York, and I didn't think he was going to do it. And now he's writing me, telling me, maybe it'd be better if I visit you in Hawaii than for you to come to New York. But practically speaking, he thought it'd be hard for him to get to Hawaii at this point, so maybe I'd need to come to New York to see him. And it's like, wow. You mean you just up and moved to New York? But then I thought about what I did. And I realized that what I did set in motion that new mental equivalent in other people that I'm close to there. They began thinking, oh, maybe, so like the I'm outing you if you're watching. So the administrative assistant in Wichita had been feeling this desire to do something new and open up to more, and I could feel it, but I wanted her to arrive at it. And so she contacted me recently and said she's gotten into ministerial classes with Unity. You know, we do that for one another. We establish a new mental equivalent of what is possible. And the same, I mean, prosperity is not only about money, it's about relationships, it's about living life fully. And so setting that mental equivalent, setting that set point is the term that Linda used, setting that, you know, what is it that you're really about? What is it that you're really wanting to experience? What is it that you really want to go for? I was working with somebody one time who wanted to write a book. And I said, well, write a book. And he said, well, it's kind of hard because of work. And it's like, you know, we worked on that. And he shocked me. He stopped work and he wrote the book. And I was like, wow, you can actually do that? You know, what is possible? What is possible? We're the ones who set the limit. We're the ones who determine what is it that we want to experience. I used to fantasize about living in the mountains, and I'd fantasize about living by the ocean. And it's like, really? Can I ever do either one? How about both? I mean, what's possible? I mean, right? If we really accept this foundational belief that there's infinite substance and nothing is impossible with God, and that this God substance is everywhere fully present, then anything's possible. And if we can really get that in our heart and get that in our consciousness, then we begin to live it. And then when people use limiting language around us, it sounds like a foreign language. When people start talking about lack and limitation and, oh, this is impossible, and, oh, who do they think they are to try to do that? You recognize, oh, I've expanded too far to shrink back to that type of consciousness. Right? Because once you've expanded, you don't shrink back very well.
A couple of decades ago, I went to my husband's high school reunion. He went to a boarding school, so the guys were all real close. And a guy came up to me and said, because he said, "Wow, I wish I could move to Hawaii." And I was like, "Well, you can. I did.
Yeah.
Dave did." And he was like, "Well, no, I can't because this.
Right.
And so my point is that we have to catch ourselves when we're seeing someone else doing something and thinking, I could never do that.
Right.
Because we could if we wanted to.
Why couldn't you? Exactly. I remember when I was in college and I had a speech teacher, and I was at that time very withdrawn and quiet. And so this teacher, Gertrude Taylor, really special speech teacher, really touched my life. But she was more about, she wasn't just about teaching speech. She was about opening up people's lives. And I found that out one day because I would habitually come to class 10 or 15 minutes late. Every time, 10 or 15 minutes. And it was at a period in my life where, I was doing a lot of meditation and stuff. Anyway, I'd just get there late. And she would always, she'd have these very formal ways of talking to us. And she said, "Mr. Lytle, would you have the time?" And she wasn't, I don't think she was being facetious at all. She's just that respectful. "Mr. Lytle, would you have the time in your busy schedule to meet with me someday in my office?" And I was like, "Sure." Okay. I was like, uh-oh. Whoa. I'm going to have to face up to this. So I met with her, I was a little nervous, but there was something about her spirit that just helped me to feel very, very open. Now, this is in the thinking of where I was at that time, okay? But she said, "Mr. Lytle," and she was asking me about why I'm always late to class and trying to think of ways that maybe I could start meditation earlier and then come to class on time, trying to work with me to find solutions so I could come to class on time. And but then it was kind of like she set aside that agenda and said, "Mr. Lytle, what is it you really want in life? What is it more than anything that you feel passionate about? What is it that you dream of doing? What does your heart call you to?" And she just stared into my eyes and sat there quietly until I would answer. And I said, "Well, my answer might sound kind of strange, or, She said, Mr. Lytle, tell me, what is your dream? And, at that time, this is the dream that I said, I have the dream of evangelizing and working spiritually with the entire world. Now, this is coming from one of the most withdrawn young people in that entire university. Now, I expected her, like some of my high school or middle school teachers, to laugh or go home, roll their eyes or whatever. But, she didn't even skip a beat. She said, and why can't you do that, Mr. Lytle? Why wouldn't you be able to? And it shocked me. For the first time, I thought, what? Could it be possible that I could actually do whatever it is I feel called and drawn to do? She actually believes that. And it became very clear in that very conservative religious university that she believed that whatever I dreamed could happen. It was metaphysical teaching. And that's really what we're teaching here, is that we are the ones who place limits and conditions on things, like you were saying, Jan. I've heard people so many times say, oh, I couldn't do that, though, because of this and this and this and this and this and this, And yet, I have seen people who, in spite of this, and this, went ahead and did it anyway. And that showed me, oh, I guess we can do it. And like my brother, the kindergarten teacher, he would have his kids learn something new or try to do something new, but they'd say, I can't do that, Mr. Lytle. You can't? No, I can't do it. Oh, okay, show me how you can't do that. Show me. And so in their attempt to show him how they can't do it, they would end up doing it. We're the ones who set the limit. Isn't that crazy? It's amazing. Keith, did you have your hand up?
Sometimes when I want some things and I think I can't get them, I have to ask, who said so? Who said, I always ask, who said so that I can't do this or I can't have certain things? And I have to question this committee and says, yeah, it's because I say so. But I'm always asking, who said so? I'm hearing that I, this conditioning. And I always say, yeah. It's because I say so, and allowing myself to have a larger experience. And something like you, when I was in college, I had a yoga teacher, and I said, yeah, I want to go around the world. And she says, why don't you do it? It's like I was asking her for permission because I didn't think I could do it.
Right.
Yeah, she says, go and do it.
Yeah.
And I did it.
Good.
But, yeah, having someone who was on my side, because, I had someone who said, yes, you can do it.
Right.
You can say so rather than no. So I'm always asking, who said so?
Isn't that exciting?
Yeah.
But it's also a little scary, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Can be, because it means stretching outside of our comfort zone. And some people don't want to do that. Some people want to just stay, calm, safe. But what I found is it isn't safe. Yes. It's about allowing that full expression to come forward. Because when I'm sabotaging myself, I'm creating my own hell. I may blame others, but it's my consciousness that's doing it. Catherine? Oh, sorry.
my husband and I had a really hard time allowing ourselves to, when he retired, live in Hawaii. It was away from our family, so far away, so expensive, so this and that. So we ended up torturing ourselves for several years with like no money and different things like that. So easy to do in Hawaii. And my youngest sister was going to be married in Boston. And my mom called and said, you know, your dad and I want to treat you to, because we were going to fly their Space A, which is, anybody's ever flown military Space A, it was, you wait and maybe 3 days later you can go and you're there for hours and hours and maybe you get to go at 4 a.m. and you just never know. And so I said, well, you know, we're going to try and go. Yeah, we want to go to the wedding because I want to go to the wedding. But, you know, we're going to go Space A. So my mother called and says, your father and I want to pay for all of you to come. I said, oh, God, Mom, thank you so much. Oh, we couldn't possibly accept. That's way too much. That was 4 tickets at the time. I was pregnant with the last. And so I said, oh, thank you so much. Oh, but we couldn't. Thank you. Hung up. My son, Kevin, next to me, standing next to me, 7 years old, said, did Nana and Pop just ask if they could give us tickets to fly normally out to Boston? And he said, but you said no. And he just like crumpled. And I was like, oh, yeah, honey, well, that's way too much money. That night, I had this dream where we were running and trying to find the right Space A place. I was pregnant. We're carrying all these bags, and we're trying to find the airport. We couldn't find the airport. I wake up in the morning. I call my mother. Mom, does that offer still stand? And we accepted. It was fabulous. But
Wonderful.
It's like, you know, that allowing. I had to allow.
Yes.
But a child knows right away. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the truth. Children know the truth. Take the gift. Oh, my God, take the gift.
Yeah,
And
that's beautiful.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so everything's available. Oh, Catherine?
Just a quick thought on that. It reminds me of something in the Bible where we call the adverse ego. Both, it's something that you want, and then at the same time, the adverse ego says, no, but you shouldn't have it, or you're selfish, or you're guilty. So it's very bizarre because it's both aspects. It's both, oh, I want it, the desire. Oh, no, you're a bad person. It's too, you know. And it's like, you know, that's a bizarre ego. Now, they call that Satan in the Bible. I'm not allowed to say these words in unity. I had the principal call me the last time someone said devil.
You can say that.
But in the Bible, that was called Satan, who was both tempting you, and then it says, and this is what, as a psychologist, I went, wait a minute, this is my whole practice. You know, turns around and then criticizes you on the same thing.
Yes.
We call it in psychology oftentimes the critical parent and child. The child wants it, and the parent goes, no. You know,
Yes. Yeah, and, you know, in Scripture, it defines what Satan means, the adversary. Yeah. So when you talk about the adverse ego, adversary, it's like that which is fighting against our very best instincts and that Christ nature. Yeah. Hi.
Put my 2 cents worth in.
Please do.
So
It's worth more than 2 cents. But
I think you have to be a good receiver as well as a good giver.
Yes.
Because the person giving to you, that's how they feel their love towards you.
Right.
And if you don't take it, then they feel bad.
Right.
Because
yeah.
you're not accepting it too. So it's okay to be a good receiver as well.
It is.
Say thank you.
That's right. I have found, you know, and this goes back to something I said a little bit ago, that if I am open to receiving, I'm also more open to giving. I mean, it's cyclical. It goes together. It's like two sides of the same coin. If my pride is such that it's difficult for me to receive from someone else, then I also tend to be stingy about giving to someone else. because it becomes centered around that adverse ego. And again, all of these writings, this is on page 205 in Butterworth's book. In about the middle of this big paragraph. As one person changes their level of thought, the consciousness of the whole changes to that degree. So that is, we can raise ourselves up to the level of our consciousness. When water spills, it looks for the easiest pathway to go. When we raise our consciousness, the rest of our being, like that water, follows that path. So energy goes where our attention and intention goes. Where we're focusing, that energy gets channeled. So he encourages us to think productivity, think abundance, and something begins to happen. So if you're not experiencing the prosperity in your life that you would like to experience, first look at your consciousness. What are the beliefs that I'm holding? What are the limitations I'm putting on myself? What are those attitudes that I've been clinging on to that maybe I wasn't even aware of? What are the barriers? And is there a part of me that thinks that I live in a very limited universe? Is there a part of me that thinks, oh, if I get something, I sure don't want to share it, and that doesn't sound very good, so maybe it's better that I don't have it? I mean, our mind can do some weird stuff. Weird stuff. Okay, so here again, another story about myself. So I was very quiet. I was attracted to the girls there on the campus, but I didn't know how to talk to them. I didn't know what to do. I was like, and they talk to me, I go, hi. I was just one of those nerdy guys that didn't know how to talk. And so in my senior year, I don't know, something began to shift. Have a good treatment. All right. Something began to shift. And I don't know what it was. So we had one of those Sadie Hawkins weekends, where the girl can ask the guy. Instead of waiting for the guy, the girl can ask the guy. And so, here I am, one of these guys that had a hard time talking to girls and wondering if any of them would even want to. And, in like one weekend, I had 3 girls ask me out. I'm like, what? How'd that happen? What have I been missing? And this was the new mental equivalent. What have I been missing out on this whole time by doing this negative self-talk? When there was, pardon me, abundance available all the time. It was a metaphysical lesson. So how do we limit ourselves? With our own consciousness, with our habits, with some of the things that we've been taught. I remember, as a kid, when my dad took me to California, and first time I saw palm trees, and it's like, wow, there was a new mental equivalent. Wow, there's other stuff possible. You guys don't get snow and ice here in the winter. All of a sudden there was this whole shift in my thinking, and I was talking to I remember when I was first looking for a church years and years ago to be the pastor, and I was making some connections in California. And so I was looking at the possibility of being a minister in California. Now, I love my dad, okay, but he said, I don't think you would be happy in California. California is not our kind of place. People think very differently in California. He said, I don't even understand how they think, but they're very, very different from the way we are in the Midwest. I think you need to stay in the Midwest because the people there are just too different from us. Now, it kind of scared me, like, oh, maybe I don't know how to do that. Maybe, you know, what are those people in California like? Are they just really weird and strange? You know, sound like another species or something. And so sometimes we place these limits on ourselves based on what people have taught us or our own fears or other things, you know. I mean, it's interesting. Anyway, someone had their hand up, I think. Yeah, Catherine.
You're bringing up a very important point. And before I say what I want to say on that, I just want to say that one of the classic things on mental equivalence and breaking through was the person where no one had ever broken the 4-minute mile in jogging, right? And remember that once that one person did it,
and then others started.
Boom. Because they said, no, that's impossible.
Right.
That's impossible. Just like people, you know, with Jesus, no, that's impossible. But he kept doing it. And then he does this mental equivalent, like, you resurrected after death. You did something like there's life after death. You can resurrect, you know. Mm-hmm. So that was, you know, extraordinary. Yeah. Extraordinary. He's an ascended master. So, but what I want to say, back to the pride and vulnerability and not giving, I was looking at that and I went, this is huge, because what it's really about is not just, of course, pride, but vulnerability.
Yes.
So if I don't want to, if I receive, and we, you know, we've all kind of felt this one time or another, I'm vulnerable. Or if I give, I'm vulnerable. And that's why people aren't in relationship, and it gets scarier if it becomes, you know, a significant other and stuff like that. It's like, and so really, it's about relationship. And if you haven't had a relationship with God, you know, if you have a relationship with God, you start relating. And then God says, well, here, let's expand. I mean, God said to me one day, you got to expand your joy equivalent because we're bringing blessings in here. Cool. And I said, okay, so that allows you. Mm-hmm. And it was just like with the relationship. So I really want to say that because practicing relationship is a way of, you know, giving and receiving that has total ramifications.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you.
Right relationship.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. That's awesome. Yes. Hi, Joanne. How you doing?
I know. What time? Two things. One time in a class, we were talking about giving and receiving. I can't remember why, but we were. And one of the persons in there said, she said, oh, it's okay for me to receive. It's like, big deal, no big deal. But she said, my fiancé, he can't, if somebody goes to give him something, he thinks he has to come back with a 9-course dinner and, you know, that he has to over-give back because he feels so obligated by whatever he was given.
So he probably doesn't like to receive.
Right.
Yeah.
She said, but it doesn't bother me. It's like, psh. And then somehow it came up, and I said, well, I don't know how it happened, but she said, she shared that she felt nauseous when people would do that. And I said, oh, so we got in touch with where the nausea was in her body, and tears came up, and she realized that she wasn't comfortable with it either, except that her symptoms are very different from her fiancé's, which was fascinating.
Interesting.
And this another, now I'm going to shift. We were talking about what we said couldn't happen in the 4-minute mile. There were scientists trying to create crystals of a certain when you put two things together, compound, and they couldn't do it. It needed the heat and the whatever, and the pressure to make it work, and they couldn't make it, and finally they were able to create this one crystal, and I wish I could remember the compound, but I don't. And then all of a sudden, these crystals started forming. This is a true story. I wish I had more of the specifics on it. And people said, well, and then they started to notice how easy it was to produce these crystals. And so maybe I should check it on Google and see if I can come up with it. Yeah, but it really happened now. It's like,
sure.
Yeah, I guess like $1 million. But of course today, $1 million isn't worth what it used to be.
Yeah, and sometimes science fiction writers or fiction writers or comic book writers have envisioned these things that look so far out, but, it started producing these ideas, like when I see somebody that has a watch that they can talk to, they can read things on, they can, it's like, I remember as a kid reading Dick Tracy, the cartoon, and he would have this watch that he could talk to people. And I think, oh, that's cool, but that's so far out. I mean, would that ever actually happen? And now what is possible? The further we go, the more we realize how much is possible. Yeah. Yes. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's about our consciousness, and I believe that our consciousness also can build with one another. Jesus used this premise of where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst. So it's like our consciousness working together can really have an effect, can have a power. Now, people have experimented with that. There's been experiments done, and Reverend Levitt, you've probably seen some of these studies of people who have done prayer work with people in hospitals, or like I saw a controlled study, so it was done remotely. There was a group that was being prayed for. There was a group that didn't know if they were being prayed for or not. There was a group that wasn't being prayed for. And people didn't know what groups they were in. The people who were being prayed for recovered more quickly, had fewer complications, got out of the hospital 3 to 4 days earlier than other groups. There's work done on consciousness. I have a friend who helped lead, maybe you've heard about this, in Washington, D.C., there is, it was high incidence of murders and crime and so forth. And so there was this group of people who, in meditation, just held the consciousness of peace and harmony and did this over an extended period of time. And there was a very measurable and significant decrease in crime, in murder, during that period of time. Our consciousness is really powerful. Yeah. Because we're the outpicturing of God. Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah. I think that, Catherine, you made a really good expression of practicing relationship. practicing my relationship with God, and how do I go about in doing that to get that consciousness, whether it's through prayer, meditation, or for me is finding different ways. Practicing my relationship is coming to Sunday services on Wednesday, through prayer work, through my God songs, through the things and to my conversations with God. So that's how I practice my relationship first, and I think that's really important to find ways in actually practicing my relationship. In the process, I change my consciousness too, because my consciousness then goes and merges with God. So to me, is that practicing my relationship is something that I am always aware of when I go to sleep or when I get up. I
Yes.
practice that relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that's
beautiful.
real important to practice that. And
Yes.
I still have a good time. I don't want to
Right.
get too serious about it, but I'm out there. So I'm saying, God surprised me. Let's go have some fun
Right.
today. I'm practicing relationship.
I find that the more I do that, the more fun I have.
Yeah, I get
Because I'm not trying to have fun. I'm not trying to find ways to entertain myself. I just allow it more easily.
Yeah.
So like when I was at Anama Bay yesterday, I'm like just relaxed and meditating and laughing and connecting with the fish. And it's like, oh, this is so cool. This is like a swimming prayer. That's how it felt. It felt like a swimming prayer.
That's right. It comes in many forms. That's what's really cool
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, thank you, Keith. Yeah, Joanne? Yes.
I've always thought if God is omnipotent, and omniscient, and then He must have an omnipresent humor, or
I agree.
yeah, that
I think so.
if He has the best
Right.
humor around.
When I look
So,
at all the humorous
the
stuff
cosmic
around,
jokes.
yeah, when I look at all the humorous stuff around, I'm thinking there must be something integral to the substance of the universe that is humorous. The platypus, yeah. Yeah. This is great. Any comments about what you have gotten out of the class, what has been most helpful for you, or questions you have about any of the subject matter that we covered? Anything, Jan?
So one of the things that was really helpful to me was the discussion, which we actually I don't think have had here, but in the books, about, this chapter that comes next, laying up treasures.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're supposed, so if everything we need is readily available to us, then we should just spend everything. And then when you get to be 67 or so and you want to retire, what you gonna do? Because you haven't got anything to live on if you stop working. So work brings in money totally reliably, but then what? So talking about, having a different consciousness about savings and what you do with your savings was helpful to me.
Yeah.
The other thing, this may sound silly or surprising, but I have a weird relationship with God.
Great.
Because I think of God as a force, and I always have. One of the reasons I like this church is because that fits in here with, even using the word God is a little bit dicey because it immediately creates this person image, right? It's hard for me not to do that, not to go there. Anyway, so people keep talking about practicing the presence. And I'm like, what is that all about? Anyway, not that I've never felt it, but how to practice. But the idea that all of the substance is everywhere, is centered in every place. that God is centered in every place, then all of a sudden that totally makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And it just, that's
Wonderful.
just being aware that God is everywhere, which, I mean, I've been saying that to myself, right, for the past 30 years. But getting it from outside to inside, all of a sudden, this makes sense.
Made sense. Wonderful. There's a book that I used sometime back in a class in Wichita. It's called Ordinary Enlightenment. And it's published through Unity, I believe. I have at least 2 copies, I believe, that I brought with me. So it's talking about ordinary, everyday ways that we can experience the presence. And it's very practical, and so it's practical mysticism, ordinary enlightenment, if you're interested. Now, Joy, you had your...
Thank you. One thing that really you got right to this part here, and then you didn't read the other part, and I'm like, how can you not read that other part, right?
Please do.
So anyway, which is okay, but when I got it, the other part, I didn't make notes before you, as I was reading. It says yes, check marks, all this stuff. So anyway, when you talked about universal substance and the whole of everything's universal substance, the paragraph that resonated with me, which to me summed up this whole book, said, this is fundamental spiritual law. When you really know yourself as a spiritual being, you experience the fulfilling of the law, which rushes, streams, and pours into you. Isn't that a nice visual? It says, in terms of substance and supply, and all that is required for success. It just seems to wrap up the whole thing,
Yeah, it rushes to you.
Yeah, just the words.
Just allowing it. It's beautiful. What's that? Emma Curtis Hopkins, yeah. Yeah, which if you don't know, Emma Curtis Hopkins is called the teacher of teachers because she taught the Fillmores and ordained them, taught Ernest Holmes, taught divine science. I think, Melinda Kramer may have taught the Brooks sisters. Nona Brooks. So she's called, and many others, so she's called the teacher of teachers. She had been an editorial assistant for Mary Baker Eddy in Christian Science, and so worked closely with Mary Baker Eddy, and then began to expand her repertoire. And Mary Baker Eddy said, no, you can't. And she said, yeah, I can. Anyway, so Emma Curtis Hopkins went elsewhere. Yeah, Marcia?
I've learned in this class the mentally equivalent. And it seems like I've been reading, I've been living part of my life like that. So it's like, that's what it's called. And then infinite supply, that's just a reminder to me, because I know when I'm giving, I'm always receiving in some shape or form. It's not necessarily what I was sharing or giving, but it comes back in all these tremendous, wonderful, different ways.
Yes.
And I'm always happy about that. And someone came up to me one time and said, why are you so happy? And I was like, why not? I mean, and so I can relate to the infinite supply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking this week, how I used to be it's hard to talk about, but how I used to be stingy and had a hard time sharing. And thinking about how wonderful it's been to share with my friends who are here from Canada and share the car and stuff, and not with the purpose of receiving something back, just the joy of sharing. Well, I may take a trip to British Columbia. Yeah, that may be in my future. But in any case, and so, it's funny because Olga Lucia has been in Wichita, but she hasn't had a car. She's there helping out my mom and my brother, but hasn't had any transportation. And sometimes I've called her, and she's walking great distances to get places. Doesn't have a car, and they don't have very good public transportation there. And so she called me. She connected with a friend, and her friend has a significant other that has rental cars. They heard about what was going on in her family and about what's going on with Olga Lucia. And so for a month, for free. Now, she'll give them something, but for a month, for free, she's got this car now to drive. Now, there would have been a time where I would have felt, whoa. But now it's like, no, that I love being in this flow, I mean, it's perfect. I saw someone's hand up over here, and then, oh. Okay.
You were talking about you work to a certain age, and then if you just spend it as you go, then you have none at the end. And then I started thinking about that. I thought, why do we have to quit work? But we do because the work, the pressures, the kind of work we do. But if we all believed in the flow, we truly believed and lived the flow, that wouldn't even be an issue, it would seem to me. Mm-hmm. Because you would work until doing whatever you did. You might change jobs. You might not be 24/7, like sometimes in your life. And as you get older, or it doesn't have to be older, but when you're taken care of, then you don't spend all your energy getting sick because you're stressed out, because you trust. So you probably live to an older age, I would imagine, and when you're there, you're healthier, mm-hmm. and it would just change the entire picture, it would seem, if we could really believe in God's flow and completeness.
Yeah, that's what Fillmore talks about. Catherine, and then...
Go ahead.
Yeah, I had an experience once when I wanted a car, and I was in deep meditation. I was above Manoa, and I said, God, I want a car. So I get home on the bus, and a friend of mine calls me up and says, Keith, I just fell down, and I won't be using my car for 6 months. Do you want to use it? And I didn't say, can I have it? But she loaned me her car. This was
wow.
So that was pretty fast. But for me, work isn't the only source of money. Because I find, 2 years ago, I found $4,000 on the street. And I find money on the bus, and and I won like close to $4,000 on slots in Las Vegas. Because I'm lucky, and then 2 years ago, I won like $800 in the California lottery. So to me, it's not just work isn't the only source of money. Sure, I don't mind working. That's really good if I enjoy it, but it's not the only source. To me, is opening up to various ways. I mean, I didn't know that I was even in a retirement program at the East West Center, and they gave me like $600 when I left. It was free. And the same thing at Kaiser. I worked for Kaiser when I was a kid, and all of a sudden they told me I had $9,000 in a retirement fund. I said, what's that all about? Yeah, that's right. It's all God, So it wasn't just, working isn't the only source. I mean, sure, it's great if it's free. I like surprises like that. But it's not the only source for me. And I know where it came from, too. See? Mm-hmm. And I think that's important.
God
it
is
can
our
come
source.
in different ways, People have given me thousands of dollars, people who have the means to do that. With no strings attached. They've just given me the money, and that's really nice to have friends like that. So I know that God has worked through them to when I needed it. That's basically when they saw that I needed help, they gave me the money, and that's really nice, So I know that I'm provided for.
Thank you. Catherine?
I wanted to share something about when you said the person gave Olga Lucia the rental car, which was just like, wow, that's so wonderful. And in that moment, this thought came to mind, which is sometimes how I think about it, which is, we are God. Our needs are God's needs. God needed a car. And the thing I always say, God provides for all its needs. So God provided itself with a car.
Wow.
And so, if I take myself out of it, and God needed that car.
Wow.
Yeah. God provides. I'll say it again, because...
that's like a treatment.
That's a treatment. And it came back when you said that, because it was truly God needed the car. And God doesn't deny itself. It doesn't indulge it. But God provides for its needs.
Wow.
And there are moments where I'll reach that place, and I reached it when you said it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Big. It's big, because then there is no Satan. There's no, I want to, but I can't. It's like, no, this is a need of God. I mean, it's probably cold there. This is a need of God.
Yeah.
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 We don't need, yeah.
Wow, thank you. That's beautiful. I'm still... Oh, yeah, you did.
No, a different one, but it's...
Okay, let me go over here and then... I'm still... I'm sorry, I'm delaying because I'm still...
Yeah, and that's why I wanted other people to go first.
Doing this treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean... because
what?
There really are ways to treat our consciousness.
Let's actually just take a moment, because that's why I wanted everybody to have the chance to just say, what if, you read it, when we know who we are, and what do we say in unity? We are God. I am that. So then there is no us, our ego, or others' ego. There's only the ever-present God, who also is experiencing every part. And when it's true, when it's real, that's God's needs. Very clear in this story. Otherwise I wouldn't have had the thought. It's very clear. That's God's needs. God's needed that car. God is also the person offering the rental car.
Right.
God is every part of that.
Right.
But then we get to experience the joy of being in that flow, as you say, of experiencing that. And even the moment right now, if you have it, like I had it when I said, wow, I just had another remembrance of these major things in your class, if we're talking about, and you're having a moment. That's God having a moment.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine.
I kind of almost want to whisper after that.
Yeah.
But my thinking was, it is done unto you as you believe. And I've been here at this class to further explore what my beliefs are and to move beyond them. Like the other story, my beliefs were a little more narrow and confined those days, and to expand out. And like Emma Curtis Hopkins says, this too is good, this too is God, this too is for me. And to acknowledge that anytime I am blessed and I receive my good, as I am lifted up, so all others are lifted up. And to just, and blessed, and remind myself of that, because it's kind of easy to get into, spiritual, is this spiritual or not? kind of thing. Am I allowed to have this? Oh, and allowing myself, yes, this too is good, this too is God, this too is for me, and this too shall bless everyone as I accept and receive it, is where I want to be in my thinking. And I really appreciate all the opportunities you gave me to share, because it's been a long time since I've been in a class and sharing, and it was really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Good.
I appreciate this class very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Say, Joanne, you were going to share something?
When we were about to open the school, I had just given birth in September, and I thought, well, no, I didn't know if I'd be pregnant or where. Anyway, a year went by because we couldn't open up right away. We decided to build. So my little boy was just about a year and a month. So I thought, well, what am I going to do? Dawn's mother said she wasn't available anymore to babysit, and I thought, and who's even qualified to take care of my child? And, what do I do? And I said, well, Joanne, if you really believe what you believe, then you better just get with it and know that it will be handled. Within 15 minutes, this friend called who had a son just Rod's age, and she said, I've been thinking what you're going to do. And she said, I could come up to the church, because there was a nursery there next to where the kitchen was down in that area at the time for Sunday school and so forth. And she said, I could just come up every day and I could take care of Rod with my son, with Ryan, and I could take them to the park and to do this and so forth and feed them lunch, and then I'll put Rod to sleep in the nursery in the crib, and I can leave then. And that first year, it was absolutely perfect. And so, and I didn't pay a cent. When I think of it, I didn't even realize. And so she had both boys. They were a month apart in age. And she was in a small apartment, and that allowed her to get out and be out. And it was just, yes. But, it just blew me over.
That's awesome.
Yeah, with these things that happen that are so out of it.
And what I feel in this moment, like what I feel in this field of energy, is that consciousness knowing that everything we need is supplied. God is not a neurotic parent, but rather God expressing as us. All needs are supplied. I'm just feeling this, and it needs to go from this conception in the brain to really sinking into our consciousness and into our heart, so that we can feel it, we can experience it, we can express it. I remember when I was accepted into the field licensing program, and there are mentors, and they choose you. And evidently with me there was it wasn't really a fight, but there was a little bit of a tussle to see who would be my mentor. And so my mentor met with me for the first time. We were sitting in a car, and she said, Tim, this is how she did it, okay? She said, Tim, intellectually, metaphysical principles and Fillmore and so forth, but there's a whole lot you don't know. And I'm going to work with you so that this begins to come natural, so that it's not just head knowledge, but it's just really pouring out of you. And in this moment, it's like I'm again thinking of swimming in Hanauma Bay. It's like I'm immersed in the presence, immersed in the knowing of oneness, immersed in knowing that we're never, ever separate from our good. I'm immersed in knowing that there's only one presence. There's only one power. Can you feel that? Can you feel that in this field? I mean, that's the truth of what is always here, of what is always present. When I was looking down with my goggles and saw these beautiful fish, and it's another world, you know. After doing it for a long time, and I came up onto the beach, I could hardly walk. It's like, where am I? A whole other world opened up to me. And in the same way, this world of oneness, this world of this infinite substance of God, you know, some people don't see it at all. They walk past it like, you know, they've never put on the goggles and seen all the substance, all the beauty, all the joy, all the health, all the wholeness, all the relationships, all that God is fully present. They walk past it and go, wonder what that's about. And when we're immersed in it, when we feel it, when we know it, then we know anything is possible. We really know it. I'd like for us to go into meditation at this time, to sink this in even further. The prayer of my heart in this church, when I teach, when I speak, whatever, the prayer of my heart is this, that we experience this presence in our own being. It's not about me putting something inside of you. It's about opening up what's already there. So if you wish, close your eyes or relax your gaze. Take in and out a slow, deep breath. And feel this presence, this infinite presence that does not withhold from us, but as we are the outpicturing, the expression of this presence, all of our needs are met. That God is giving to God. There's no withholding. Everything we need is readily supplied. Everything that we truly, truly need is here already. We open our hearts. We open our consciousness to receive this. We open ourselves to fully receive all the goodness, the prosperity, health, wholeness, beauty, relationships, all that God is experiencing in this universe, we open ourselves to experience. Knowing that we are that presence. And as we are in this presence and expressing as this presence, we realize anything is possible. We just allow it. We open ourselves to whatever is needed. Let's have a few moments of silence as we connect in God and this God presence and this infinite substance. Spirit, we are so grateful We are grateful to be in this flow of prosperity, to be in this flow of abundance, to be in this magnificent field of abundance and prosperity, infinite substance. We open ourselves, avail ourselves to this wonderful flow, knowing all of our needs are met, knowing all is well, knowing all is one. And for this we give thanks. And so it is. Amen. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being open to this. This is an ongoing journey. This is an ongoing journey for all of us, learning and expanding. And as I said in the beginning, I believe, and tonight is absolute proof of it, but every night we've met is proof of it. I learned so much. All of us are teachers. All of us have so much to share. We have evaluation forms. What's that? I'm sorry? Oh, if any of you want SEE credit for this, is that what you're referring to, Levitt? Yeah, you can receive, like, we've been keeping track of attendance. So if you've been attending all the classes, you can, if you wish, sign up to receive credit, SEE credit. Does anyone need one of those forms? Yeah, thank you. Reverend Levitt's been so wonderful, and Sean, let's give them a hand. Thank you for helping us. These are evaluation forms, if you wish. Yes. Uh-huh. This is kind of backwards from what? Yeah. So like the first one, in this event, I gained insights that contributed to my spiritual growth. So disagree strongly is at the far left. Strongly agree is further to the right. The extreme right is not applicable. So I almost think of this as, what's that called, a Likert scale? Like 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 to 5, with 5 being strongly agree. But
just need to know
yes.
which side it is.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
Totally disagree. And it's like, ooh, really?
Ooh, wow. Didn't do that very whoopee. Are you looking for a pen? No, this is the last one for this. Yeah, here you go. I'd like it back, but yeah. What's up? Okay. I wonder if I should fill one out. I think I will. I forget. Because we took a 3-week break. Name of workshop. Anyone need a SEE form? Reverend Levitt has that. I think I'm going to fill one of these out. I wonder if we have any for people online. What is today? The 6th. Uh-oh. I have something due tomorrow.
I would recommend that if anybody has an inkling that they're going to use, maybe have become credentialed in the licensed teacher or minister, that you do 6 of them over again.
Oh, what you here's a mic.
It's off in the back.
Oh, is it off in the back now?
I muted because I thought we were going home.
Oh, I was thinking we're still being broadcasting. Okay, here. Okay.
I'll say that again.
All right. Thank you.
That's important.
Yeah, thank you, Reverend Levitt.
Well, I don't know if it's important. Actually, there's no battery.
Oh. Let's see. That'll just give us more time to fill out these evaluation forms. Thank you for filling that out. I meant to do that when we had the prayer weekend workshop. I forgot to do it.
Uh-oh, shame on you.
Oh, you got sound now.
Yeah, if you have any inkling on any of these SE classes that you, even if it's just a moment, a drop of intention to become a licensed teacher or a minister, take them for credit. Like I said, I'll never need any of these, and I took 6 of them all over again. And one of them I took twice, which is a phenomenal class, the 4T program with Stratton Smith. The unfortunate thing about that class is that you listen to cassettes of Stratton Smith, and he never changed octave. Ever. Never, ever changed octave. Just saying.
Yeah. So.
Take it for credit if you have any inkling that you may want to pursue credentialing or licensed teachership or ministry in Unity, because the personal development program, the core 25 core classes are a must.
Cool. Awesome.
Okay.
I'll pass this around. If you would like to give a love offering, you can, and you can also put your form in here if you're done with the form. So we can pass this around. It says on the bottom there's a registration fee. There is a registration fee of $45. Yeah, okay. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. But
Thank you. Thank you. It doesn't go to us. It doesn't go to us. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
a
thank
phosphorus
you.
person,
Thank
so I'll just
you.
know that
Yeah, I don't know a good response right now other than thank you. Oh, how should we do that, Catherine? Should send the check? Catherine can help you here. Yeah, thank you. Use the buddy system here. Yeah. Is that basket still going around? Oh, it's still here. I think Judy and I had talked about that. I need to, I know that we were looking at doing that. I need to get back to you on that. Of course, Judy has left now in terms of that position, but I need to touch base with her. And we can probably, all of those who have been watching us online, are we still on? Thank you for joining us. We love you. Feel free to send your remarks to us or any feedback about this class. We love you. We behold the highest and best in you. And we just send you warm blessings of aloha. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Is that correct? Is that correct? Is a check made out for credit just for Unity, or is it for Unity National School?
I would make it out to Unity National School.
Yeah, because I'll tell you something, and let it, I just want to be clear, because we will count that on Monday and put it in. Well, we've got to separate.
I don't think that's. Well, no, I'm not taking it. It never went that way.